"You missed your targets," the executive said coldly as he slid the termination form across the table like it was a receipt for a life refunded. I signed it. That's when my former team lead, Jorge, cracked open the black binder I'd left behind, my binder, and read one single clause out loud. His face drained like he'd just seen a ghost. "Sir, please tell me you didn't." The mug in his hand hit the floor and shattered. It all started at 6:47 a.m. in Manchester, New Hampshire. I hadn't even finished brewing my coffee when I opened my laptop and saw 9 Slack messages, 8 passive-aggressive, 1 just the word, "Update," from our new Chief Revenue Officer, Barrett Klein. The man typed like a drunk stockbroker. No punctuation, all caps, but full of swagger he hadn't earned. While I was untangling 7-figure contracts and preventing client churn, Barrett was playing corporate golf with the CEO and referring to himself as a scalpel for inefficiency. Cute. I was the one cauterizing the wounds. My name is Elise Corbin. I held this company together for 7 years with caffeine, commas, and clauses no one else could even explain. And now, I was being cut out like I was the inefficiency. They thought I'd go quietly. They had no idea I left behind a clause. A single, red-tabbed clause, buried in the Sierra federal contract that tied my termination to a $250,000 a day penalty. And they just fired me. But let me back up. Ever been forced out of a job you built from the ground up? Drop your city in the comments. I'd love to know where real builders like us are from. And hit like and subscribe. This one's about to get ugly. I never fought back with words. I used the binder. Black leather, steel clasp. Interns whispered about it. TSA once flagged it. It had every contract clause, every SLA revision, every single last-minute client panic memo that I handled without drama. When Barrett arrived, he gutted my staff to streamline ops. The timelines started slipping. Clients started growling. I stayed late, fixed it, again and again. But Barrett, he blamed me in front of the executive team, didn't name me, just said, "We're seeing drag from legacy leadership." 3 people looked directly at me. Then came the HR calendar invite with that fake sweet tone. "We'd like to realign on expectations." I knew. I stopped by the file room that night, slipped one folder, Sierra Federal, into my bag beneath the binder. I'd written that MSA myself during the billing disaster in May after Barrett fumbled a rollout and nearly lost the account. Inside that contract, a clause, hidden in Section 5B, termination of the named service officer, me, without written client approval. Breach. Breach equals penalty. $250,000 a day. They thought I didn't matter. But I was the linchpin. They fired me on a Wednesday. By Thursday, the walls were shaking. At 4:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Roland Desai, a senior partner in legal, a man who usually spoke in riddles only board members understood, was on the line. "Elise," he said, his voice tighter than a tourniquet. "Quick question. There's a clause in the Sierra Federal Agreement. Section 5B, can you clarify what that means?" I didn't answer right away. I stared out the window at the dying sunlight washing over old brick buildings and empty sidewalks. "I suggest you check the binder, Roland." He paused, then, "Right, thanks." Click, he knew, they all knew. And panic was spreading faster than a glitch in the payroll system. By 8:03 a.m. Monday, an email from Sierra Federal landed like a bomb in the shared inbox. Subject: Urgent contract breach inquiry. Why was your named officer terminated without prior written approval? That one sentence wiped $4 million from our balance sheet in a single morning. Jason wasn't even in the office. Probably at Equinox, or pretending to meditate with a lavender eye mask. By the time he arrived, legal had already looped in external counsel and someone from the Department of Justice liaison list. Jason skimmed the email and chuckled. "We'll just replace her. Copy and paste a title. Clients don't care about names." Roland turned the laptop screen toward him and hit play on the Zoom recording from the May MSA review. Marcia from Sierra Federal was crystal clear. "No backdating. I want it in writing beforehand or we pull." Silence. A junior compliance analyst broke it. "How much is the penalty?" Roland didn't even blink. $250,000 per business day, starting Friday. Jason paled. "She didn't even push back," he muttered. "She just signed it." And then someone whispered what everyone was thinking. She knew, and I did. Monday at 11:07 a.m., they called in Marcus. My old team lead, loyal to me, trusted by no one except the people who actually kept the place running. They handed him the binder. He opened to the red tab. Read the clause aloud. Everyone froze. "Sir," he said, locking eyes with the CEO, "please tell me you didn't fire her without reviewing this section." Silence. Then crash, someone's coffee mug exploded on the floor. The CEO stammered. We assumed it was standard language." Roland replied without raising his voice. "It's not, she added it. In red line, you all approved it." Jason barked. "Why didn't legal catch that?" Eric, the youngest attorney, barely out of law school, spun his laptop around and pulled up the approval log. "You forwarded the version and said, quote, 'All handled, great teamwork.' We had 3 minutes to review it." Then Marcus opened a separate folder. An email from Marcia, dated just after the clause was added. "Clause 5B looks solid. We appreciate your dedication to continuity. We'll move forward once you're locked in as the named officer." That email, it was the guillotine. They were in breach. Officially, legally, financially, Jason. He wasn't just incompetent anymore. He was radioactive. By Tuesday, the company's internal Slack turned into a graveyard. No GIFs, no emojis, just a string of red flag messages from legal, compliance, and ops. The kind of corporate silence that only breaks for lawsuits or subpoenas. At 2:00 p.m. sharp, Sierra Federal dropped the hammer. "We consider the provider to be in breach. All system access suspended until resolved." The CFO did the math. By week's end, just from Sierra Federal alone, the penalty would hit $1.25 million. That didn't count the paused project work. Or the other clients. Then someone in legal made a discovery, a bad one. I hadn't just buried that clause with Sierra. I had added 3 more. One with Dameron Logistics, tied to state contracts. One with Halen Tech, a cybersecurity vendor who monitored federal infrastructure. And one with Viridian Education, a $40 million statewide program. All of them named me as the point of contact. All of them triggered the same breach clause. And all of them were now ticking time bombs. Jason tried to rally the troops. Scheduled an all-hands meeting where he stood in front of a mountain stock photo and referred to the breach as a temporary disconnect. Someone, probably Marcus, laughed out loud. Meanwhile, Roland was in hour 6 of combing through every contract I'd ever touched. They found the language in all of them. Slightly different, but with one shared spine. "Fire Elise Corbin without proper procedure and you bleed." Jason. He cracked. He started yelling about backdating, legal overrides, trying to shift the blame to junior staff. But the receipts were too loud. Too many emails. Too many contracts. Too many proofs. The board held an emergency meeting that night. Jason wasn't invited. Instead, they reached out to me. The subject line? Exploratory reinstatement conversation. They wanted to bring me back, not to apologize, to stop the bleeding. But I don't do band-aids. I write policies. And this time, I had demands. I didn't respond to the board right away. Instead, I called my attorney, Margot Reed, a woman whose email signature once scared off a Fortune 500 acquisition. She had a voice like smoked mahogany and a memory like a vault. When I read her the board's message, she exhaled slowly. "They're not offering reinstatement," she said. "They're offering an airbag in a car that's already in flames." We spent the next 90 minutes crafting a reply. It wasn't a request. It was a counteroffer. Title: Executive Vice President, Strategic Contracts Reporting Line. Direct to Board Chair Termination Clause. 60-day transition minimum, majority board vote, or breach triggers full severance compensation. Stock options with immediate vesting, milestone performance bonuses, non-interference clause start date. Upon CRO Barrett Klein's removal at 2:18 p.m., Margot hit send. Subject line: Terms for reinstatement Elise Corbin by 3:09. Roland had reviewed it. He didn't even blink. He knew this wasn't a power grab, it was a tourniquet. By 7:40, the board had quietly removed Jason from all internal communication chains. His office? Locked. His profile? Removed from the leadership page. And by 9:41 p.m., they sent me their final offer. Approved. In full. I went for a walk through downtown Manchester. The night was crisp, cold, cleansing. Neon signs reflected off wet pavement. Every building looked a little less like a battlefield and more like a monument to survival. I returned home, opened my laptop, typed 5 words, "I'll be in at 9." then I shut it. Slept soundly, no dreams, just resolution. At 7:02 a.m., the internal memo went out. We thank Barrett Klein for his contributions. He has chosen to pursue other opportunities. Translation. Jason got canned so hard the air still smelled like his cologne and desperation. By 8 o'clock, the whispers were legend. Elise buried 4 nuclear clauses. She reports to the board now. She doesn't even have a boss. At 8:59, I walked into the building. Same boots. Same binder. The front desk guard nodded like I was royalty returning from exile. And then I turned toward my old wing, client ops, my wing. My desk, exactly how I left it, the mug with the sloth. The note that said, "Don't let the fire spread." Someone, probably Marcus, had reset everything down to the lumbar cushion on my chair. I set the binder down, opened it, flipped to the first red tab. The storm hadn't ended. But I was the weather now. By noon, legal had already requested 3 digital scans of my binder. One went to contract compliance, one to procurement, one just in case auditors ask. That last one made me smile. The binder they once mocked was now being called the Bible. Marcus swung by around 1 p.m. with 2 thick black notebooks in hand. "Elise," he said, smiling softly, "archive or bind?" I didn't even look up from my notes. Binder always. At 2:15, I was on a call with Marcia from Sierra Federal. I didn't grovel, I didn't explain. I confirmed the issue had been resolved. She replied with a knowing chuckle. We already knew. Just wanted to see how long it would take them to realize who held the fuse. By 3 p.m., Sierra reauthorized their portal. 2 paused engineering milestones resumed. Wire transfer hit ops. The bleeding stopped, not with spin but with structure, and I became the structure. That evening, I entered the boardroom alone. No entourage, no laptop, just the binder. Everyone stood when I walked in, even the CEO. The board chair nodded. "Miss Corbin, thank you for coming." I didn't reply, just unlatched the binder and slid a single sheet across the table. The updated federal MSA framework, indexed, clarified, watertight. The CEO reached for it. His fingers shook slightly. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off with a nod to Roland. Roland stood and read aloud from the official addendum. Effective immediately, per board vote, Elise Corbin is reinstated as Executive Vice President, Strategic Contracts. Termination requires majority board approval. Any dismissal outside ethical breach will trigger immediate compensation at 1 year's full salary. The CEO looked like he'd swallowed broken glass. I looked directly at him for the first time. "Let's never miss our targets again," I said quietly. And then I clicked the binder shut. It was the softest sound in the room, yet somehow louder than any applause. Outside, my new office had already been reassigned. The corner suite. Jason's old throne, minus the hot air. Inside, my binder rested on a spotless glass desk, flanked by 3 crisp new contracts already awaiting review. A new brass nameplate had been mounted beside the door. E. Corbin, CCSO Chief Contract Strategy Officer, not revenge. Restoration. They threw me away like old paperwork. I came back as policy.